Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right in today with, well, a huge name. Taylor Swift. She's everywhere, right? Not just music, but culture, business,
Yeah.
even the economy.
Absolutely. It's kind of amazing. We've got all this material here, articles, studies, notes, and our plan for this deep dive is really to unpack what makes her such a force.
Yeah, let's get into it. Her artistry, those big business moves, that fan connection.
And the sheer economic impact. It's quite a story, all based on the stuff we've looked at.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Nashville. She moves there as a teenager.
Yeah, around 14, I think. Really young. And specifically for country music, that was the dream.
And the talent was obvious early on. The sources mentioned she taught herself guitar.
Around age 12. Started writing songs then, too. And by 15, she gets signed to Big Machine Records. She was actually one of their very first artists.
Wow. And the songwriting. She was collaborating, but also had a strong voice for the start. I read about her working with Liz Rose.
Right. And apparently those sessions were, like, super easy. Rose apparently said she felt more like an editor because Taylor would come in with such a clear vision.
Already had the hooks.
Exactly. Writing about her own life, school experiences. And then, famously, she wrote her entire third album, Speak Now, completely solo.
Which is incredible, a real statement.
Definitely. And you can really track her evolution through the genres, can't you? Started clearly in country, influenced by people like Shania Twain, Faith Hill.
Her first few albums really have that country pop blend. Banjo, fiddle, but with pop sounds mixed in.
Yeah, Taylor Swift threw Red, but Red, that felt like a turning point, didn't it?
Oh, for sure. Pop producers coming in, and then We're Never Ever Getting Back Together. That was her first Billboard #1.
Huge. And then later, she completely shifts gears again. Think about 2020 Folklore Evermore. Suddenly it's indie folk, rock, much more stripped back.
And Midnight's Tortured Poets Department.
Yeah.
More synth pop, kind of minimalist.
What's interesting about those 2020 albums, too, is the source mentioning she started writing fictional stories, putting emotions onto imagined characters.
She said it was freeing.
Yeah.
Like, less pressure about commercial success.
Exactly. And she even categorizes her lyrics like quill, fountain pen, glitter gel pen. It shows she really thinks about her craft.
That's fascinating. But okay, beyond the music, she's often talked about as this really savvy businesswoman.
Oh, definitely. The sources really back that up, especially her advocacy for artists' rights. The big one, of course, is the master situation.
Right, the ownership of her first 6 albums, recorded with Big Machine, but then the rights were sold off without her. Okay, to Scooter Braun.
Yeah. And the sources point out, this wasn't totally unprecedented. Prince had similar issues. JoJo re-recorded her stuff too.
But Taylor's response,
Yeah.
re-recording everything.
Releasing them as Taylor's version under her own label. It was a strategic masterstroke, really. A way to regain control, make the old versions less valuable.
And we've got Fearless, Red Speak Now, 1989, Taylor's version, out already.
And it's seen as this powerful move to control her own art, her legacy, its value. Plus, she adds those from the vault tracks.
Which are a huge deal for the fans, like getting bonus content.
Absolutely adds value. And think back to 2014, too, when she pulled her music from Spotify.
That was a big statement. Arguing that music is art, artists need fair pay.
And it actually made waves. It's credited with helping shift that power dynamic a bit, giving artists more leverage with labels and streaming platforms over royalties. She wasn't afraid to, use her clout.
Speaking of clout,
Yeah.
the Swifties, her fan base, it's just enormous.
It really is. One study we looked at said half of Americans call themselves fans, and 1 in 8 are sworn Swifties.
And it's a diverse group too, right? Not just one demographic. Millennials, Hispanic individuals, Gen Z, lots of different people.
And their support is intense. Nearly 80% of Swifties actively stream or buy her music specifically to boost her chart rankings.
They pay attention. And not just to the music. A third of Americans follow her personal life, but Swifties go way deeper. They know her net worth, all sorts of details.
The dedication is incredible. Look at the numbers. 65% watch the concert movies. 60% listen to the whole discography. Over half have been to a concert.
And 52% have traveled out of state for a show.
Yeah.
That's commitment. Plus supporting her charities, adopting her style.
And then there's the loyalty question from that study. It's almost mind-boggling. 67% of Swifties saying they'd drop $5,000 for a ticket.
Wow. And what they'd give up for a night out with her. Giving up alcohol for a year.
61% said that. Over half would skip a family wedding. 50% would give up a paycheck.
That shows such a deep emotional connection. It's beyond just liking the music.
Absolutely. It's that intense connection that really fuels what people are calling Swiftonomics.
Right. The economic impact, it's staggering.
The Eras Tour especially. The total impact estimated at, over $10 billion? It's hard to even grasp.
And you see it city by city. The sources give examples. Pittsburgh, just 2 concerts, brought in $46 million in direct spending.
And most of the people were from out of town. Hotel occupancy hit 95%. Room rates shot up over 100%.
Los Angeles, 6 shows, $320 million economic impact. Created thousands of jobs, huge tax revenue boost.
Denver saw about $140 million added to the state GDP. Cincinnati, around $48 million, with almost half from out-of-towners.
It just shows how these big tours are major economic engines now, supporting local businesses, hotels, restaurants, everything.
It's a powerful demonstration of her brand's financial clout, for sure.
Okay, so shifting from the economics back to the art for a sec, the sources mentioned something really interesting about her songwriting technique. Disnarration.
Ah, yes, disnarration.
Yeah.
Sounds academic, but it's actually a cool concept.
So what is it exactly? How does she use it?
Basically, it's talking about things that didn't happen or might have happened or are only imagined within the song's world. The what-ifs.
Like exploring alternate timelines in the story.
Kind of. It creates this ontological flickering, as the linguists call it. You glimpse possibilities that aren't real in the story, but they tell you a lot about the narrator, their hopes, regrets, dreams.
You get insight into their head, not just the plot.
Precisely. You're sort of positioned to overhear their inner monologue, their speculations. It happens through if statements or hypotheticals or just saying, this didn't occur, and it makes you, the listener, more involved. You're comparing the real and unreal paths.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there specific song examples?
Yeah, the sources highlighted songs from Folklore and Evermore. The One is a great example. The whole song is the speaker musing about a past relationship, imagining a life they won't share.
If one thing had been different, that kind of vibe.
Exactly. Hypothetical scenarios, vividly described but unrealized. It shifts between, real memories and these imagined futures, and it pulls you in.
How does it make you feel more involved, though?
Well, you're invited into their speculation.
Okay.
The song uses relatable stuff, bus stops, movie references to ground these daydreams, and the wistful tone often has this touch of irony, like the speaker knows they're wallowing a bit.
A bit self-aware.
Yeah, like a wall-breaking effect. And that line, you never know, it kind of throws it back to you, the listener, making you think about your own roads not taken. It feels shared.
That's really smart songwriting. What about The Last Great American Dynasty?
That one uses counterfactuals. Who knows if she never showed up what could have been, talking about Rebecca Harkness, and then herself buying the same house. It expresses these what-ifs, regrets, alternative histories for the place, tied to real people and locations.
And champagne problems.
It's often through negation. Describing what didn't happen at the failed proposal, no crowd of friends applauded. It contrasts the expectation with the reality. It uses details like Dom Perignon to place you in this affluent world, captures the mix of disappointment, maybe relief.
And the speaker's perspective might not be totally reliable.
Right. Filtering others' views, and that line about the ex finding the real thing, you question her motives. It adds complexity.
So disnarration is this tool she uses to really deepen the character and pull you into their emotional state.
Exactly. You're not just hearing a story. You're actively engaging with the character's mind and the possibilities they imagine or deny.
Okay, shifting again her marketing. Also famously strategic. The Easter eggs.
Ah, yes, the Easter eggs. Those hidden clues and messages and everything she does, videos, lyrics, posts. Fans go wild trying to decode them.
It definitely builds community, that shared detective work.
For sure. But one source looked at a study on the Easter eggs for the Tortured Poets Department, and the findings were maybe a bit surprising.
Oh, what do they find?
Well, while fans obviously get excited, this particular study didn't find much direct evidence that those specific online Easter egg hunts strongly correlated with fans forming deeper parasocial relationships with Taylor herself, at least not in the online discussions they analyzed.
Really? So it wasn't necessarily about making fans feel closer to her in that one-on-one way based on that study?
It seems the main effect observed was massive publicity, agenda setting. The media picks up on the Easter eggs intensely.
More than fans were actually posting about them online compared to the overall album buzz.
Yeah, the study found news sources were actually more likely to post about the Easter eggs than individual fans were in those spaces. Even though fans were driving the overall conversation volume about the album, it suggests fans had lots to say about the music itself, maybe less focused specifically on decoding clues online than the media frenzy implied.
Interesting. So a brilliant marketing strategy to generate buzz and headlines, maybe more than a direct tool for deepening those individual fan connections online, according to that one piece of research.
That's what that specific study suggested, yeah. Buzz generation was key.
And the study mentioned parasocial relationships. Can you just quickly explain what that means?
Sure, it's a term from way back in the 50s, communication studies. It's basically that one-sided feeling of connection you get with a media figure, like a celebrity or musician. You invest emotionally, feel like you know them, even though, they don't know you.
And social media fuels that.
Big time. It gives you those glimpses into their lives, makes them feel more accessible, and it builds those fan communities, Swifties, Selenators, whoever. That sense of belonging reinforces the feeling.
Is it generally seen as healthy?
Mostly, yeah. It's considered a pretty normal extension of our social imagination. It can become unhealthy if someone loses touch with reality, but for most people, it's just part of engaging with media and culture.
Okay. Now, lastly, the sources also touched on her social and political stances. She's become more outspoken over the years.
That's right. And just to be clear, we're relaying what's in the source material here, not taking sides. The sources mentioned she identifies as pro-choice, feminist, signed on to Time's Up,
Criticized the Supreme Court on abortion rights.
advocated for LGBT rights, the Equality Act, performed at Stonewall, donated to related groups, also supported March for Our Lives, gun control reform.
And took stands against white supremacy, racism, police brutality. Donations mentioned to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Black Lives Matter.
Yes, and called for removing Confederate monuments, making Juneteenth a holiday. She's also criticized Donald Trump publicly.
And encouraged voter registration. One post led to like 55,000 registrations, plus endorsing candidates in 2020 and 2024.
So yeah, she's definitely used her platform to voice her views on a range of issues, according to the information we reviewed.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive based on all that material. Her journey from country singer to global icon, the smart business moves like the re-recordings.
That incredible fan-base loyalty and the whole Swiftonomics phenomenon, the sophistication in her songwriting with techniques like disnarration.
Her marketing genius with Easter eggs, the nature of those fan relationships, and yeah, her public, political, and social stances.
She's clearly way more than just a musician, a cultural force, an economic powerhouse.
Absolutely. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. When you think about how she masterfully controls narrative, both in her songs and in her public image and business decisions, how does that blend of, well, artistry and calculated control shape how you connect with her, or even how you see other public figures?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about, that mix of vulnerability in the art and strategic control in the career. It's a fascinating combination.